You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. We are here once again. Today, we have a special guest on the show. Today, we have Riana, Milne, and she is a certified global life and love trauma recovery coach, a certified clinical trauma and addictions professional, a certified mindfulness coach, and #1 best-selling author. She also has a very own podcast called Lessons in Life and Love. I just want to first say, I know you're busy. I mean, you're on Forbes. You got so many great things going in your life. I just want to cut to the chase and say welcome to the show and say, how are you doing?
Thank you so much. I'm busy, but I am good. I'm really blessed. I'm quite honored to do the work that I do and to see people's lives transformed as you're working with them before your eyes. There's just nothing like it. It's quite amazing.
Today's topic is a special topic. Today, we're going to learn the top 10 unconscious childhood traumas that impact adults in life and business. So before we dive into today's topic, to do a little bit more justice with who you are as an individual, paint the picture a little bit of the audience, a little bit about what you do.
Sure. Well, I've been a psychotherapist for 22 years in private practice. And I went through a second love relationship trauma. So I reached out to 7 of my psychotherapy friends to help heal from this. I basically was with a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, meaning someone appears to be totally different on the surface than what their life is living in a hidden manner. And that exploded on him in his workplace, and it became a big community scandal. So I went for help. Love trauma is kind of like PTSD. And everyone was shocked because they all knew us as a couple and they couldn't figure out what he had, nor did they know how to help me. And his last words to me were, "I don't know why I sabotage everything I love," as he was running out of town. So it was left up to me to do the research to figure out what he had. I said, I don't know either. And here, I'm years into being a psychotherapist, and I don't know why he would sabotage what an amazing life we did have together. So there was something deeper and something not described in the psychology book. So I had to go really deep. And the one thing that really helped me is that I worked many years with people of trauma. I was in the adolescent ward with kids ages 5 through 19 at a mental health hospital. I worked with kids of trauma as a trauma counselor in New Jersey. They call that a SAC counselor, student assistance counselor. And I served at that level from kindergarten through every grade, including college. And I worked in drug and alcohol rehabs, one for teens and one for women with the prison system. And all these people with this different kind of traumas, the top 10 kept showing up, whether they were younger or older, men or women, straight or LGBTQ. I found childhood trauma had no prejudice. So when he couldn't figure it out, I took that basis and went deeper into his family dynamic and did the research and found that he had 9 of the 10 top traumas, which led him into sociopathy. And a sociopath is someone that does things to another without remorse. They would take advantage of another person for pleasure or profit, and they would never apologize. And no, he never did apologize. So this is what I had to heal from. Now you hear a lot of people talking about, I had a narcissistic partner. And a narcissist is can or cannot be a sociopath, one or the other. A sociopath is one step worse than a narcissist, but they can be pretty close. So anyway, that was what I went through, and that's what led me to my work. And in 2012, I came out with a childhood trauma checklist. And after I wrote my #1 bestseller, Love Beyond Your Dreams, we got to 400 pages from my research. I'm like, this stuff is amazing, and people around the world have to know about it. And that's when I started doing podcasts and started my own. And I created workbooks for singles and couples and started training people on how to heal from their trauma and then have an emotionally healthy, evolved, and conscious relationship and an empowered self-esteem so they can reach the high levels that they desire in their careers as well. It is all related to all life areas. It's not just life, love. It also includes business success too.
And once again, just now tuning into I'm Refocused Radio, we are talking to Riana Milne. You can go to her website, rianamilne.com. And you have been featured on many, many big major platforms. And your success speaks for itself, but you also have personal experience. And with today's topic, it's really going to hit home for a lot of individuals out there who might struggle with this or may know someone who struggles with this, and that is childhood traumas. And in today's topic, the top 10 unconscious childhood traumas that impact adults in life and business, our professional world and personal world, kind of explain what is the definition of the actual trauma that can happen in our youth.
Okay, there's two types. Big T trauma is a big accident. This is what most people would think of trauma. Let's say you got in a car accident and you broke your arm and your leg. So as a kid, that's pretty traumatic. Being born with a medical condition, that's traumatic. That's a big T trauma. Little T trauma is these repetitive emotional events that occur over and over and again. And as I mentioned, the 10 traumas, you'll hear those. And that will be the example of a lot of little T trauma as I go through them. And it is proven in 2021, they said that everyone 100% has experienced childhood traumas. And when I was doing the research in 2012, they were saying 90% of us can look in and back and say, yeah, I did experience some trauma. And then they said the other 10% are probably sociopaths where nothing is wrong with them. It's everybody else. They always blame everyone else. But yes, it is told that we all have it. And, as I go into these, I want people to understand that childhood trauma goes through at least 3 generations. And it's not your fault, right? It's you are a child of your environment. And you weren't big enough to do anything about it. And so often these things just occurred on a regular basis that they became norms. And then they became behavioral norms. And I'll explain that again as I go through the 10 traumas, what that means. But that's your definition of trauma, big and little T trauma.
And before you name the top 10 and go through those, how often is denial as far as people blaming everybody except for themselves, or if that kind of makes sense what I'm asking?
Yes. Well, denial is part of addiction. A lot of addictions are stemmed in childhood trauma, not all, but many. And again, when the norms just seem like, well, this is normal. I can explain in an example. I had a couple come into my office in Delray Beach, and Florida is where I'm from. And the man says, well, I'm here because she yells at me all the time. Now, this woman was from South Philadelphia. I happened to be a Philly girl, and she was Italian. And I had a lot of South Philly Italian friends who talk with a lot of passion and they yell a lot, but that's just normal for them. So this woman turns to me and she goes, what do you mean I yell at him? I never yell at him. And I said, you don't hear it, do you? Because it was so normalized for her. She grew up in that environment. So we have to change these norms and behavioral patterns that don't serve us anymore. And tend to ruin relationships. And he was, a very calm Midwestern guy who didn't have any yelling when he was growing up on his farm. It was very calm and chill. So, that's an example of not seeing it. Well, she was not totally in denial. She just didn't see it for herself. It was so normalized. And that tends to be more of the majority than I would think denial.
And with that experience, when an individual finally clicks and says, oh, wow, I didn't realize that, how much of a breakthrough change have you seen happen in some people's lives when they actually say, okay, I'm going to take some responsibility and actually try to make some change in that situation?
Well, I have all the tools from research. I have a trademarked coaching system that the 150 pages in their notebook. As they're going through it, they identify themselves in there. And with the way I question and coach and educate as a certified clinical trauma professional, I have all these skills that I teach them. One builds on top of the other, on top of the other. So when they don't see that they might have been people pleasing all the time, for example, I would say, when you just told me that story of how you always had to be the good little girl to your angry dad so you wouldn't get hit, do you see that that's people-pleasing behavior? But that was your survival skill to survive in that house and find peace. And they're like, oh, I didn't even think of it that way. Again, so it's up to me as their coach to pick out the patterns that aren't serving them by what they tell me, how they write, what they write on their worksheet. So coaching is really, in my method, it's a team effort. From what they tell me, I can help them better. And I put the pieces together, and then I help them with the skills around the traumas that we're identifying.
And a follow-up question, when you pick those patterns out, when it comes to our personal lives and our professional lives, are there different patterns that pop up in each, or they're usually similar or the same?
They could be similar, they could be different. Love relationships is where childhood trauma is most impactful, because the first love relationships you were supposed to have was with your mom and dad. So if there was never a dad in the picture, now we have some abandonment issues, okay, which we call fault abandonment, trauma number 5. But how they show up in the workplace, you could be super competitive and have a need to win. That could be coming from being told, which is verbal trauma, you're not good enough. You'll never measure up to anything. I'm not sending you to college. Why would I waste my money? Which we call verbal put downs, or not feeling good enough. Or you may have a tyrant boss who's angry and yells and screams all the time, but he can't handle his own pressure. He doesn't know how to communicate well, or he might have grown up in a household with a military father, and that was their norm. You yell and scream when you're asking someone to do something for you instead of just simply requesting it. In love, but I think I should go into the 10 before I talk about love, because then I'll say this is trauma this and trauma that. So in personal life, how that shows up, I'm talking about there's 7 different categories of impact on childhood trauma: physical health, emotions, relationships, mental health issues, behavioral patterns, brain development. So for our children, for example, if they're coming from traumatic homes, this is often misidentified as ADHD. And I was a real proponent. I was a rebel in the schools having kids meditate back in 2002, and they thought that was weird. But meditation is shown to change the brain patterns and the reaction time down, and helps with emotional triggers. So there could be language delays and impaired readiness to learn. Of course, poor academic achievement, because when cortisol is up, which is a stress chemical, memory and learning is down. So it's so important for all adults to know what is childhood trauma and is their kids experiencing it, and doing everything in your power to have a nurturing and loving environment for your kids. And it used to be back in the day where women would say, now I'm just going to stay in this marriage for the kids. Even though she's abused and the kids are abused, it's better for the parent to divorce and give the children a peaceful household versus keeping a tyrant partner in the house with the kids. So some of the physical health disorders around self is sleep disorders, eating disorders, poor immune functioning, shorter lifespan, heart disease, fibromyalgia, IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome, Epstein-Barr virus, which is chronic fatigue. Some of the mental health things, definitely ongoing anxiety, bouts of depression, negative self-image and esteem, PTSD response, suicide ideation. We see a lot of folks with borderline or bipolar disorder who come from traumatic homes. with emotions, limited coping skills. You're easily triggered and angered. You have excessive worry about feeling secure, like that need for security is huge. Feelings of hopelessness or lack of self-esteem. So all that, of course, if somebody's trying to start a business, they may get so far and then self-sabotage. No, I don't want to invest in that coach. It might be too much money. Those lack messages that we might have grown up with, that we're not worthy enough to invest in ourselves. So that can play a big part in those that want to be an entrepreneur or keep people stuck in the 9 to 5 with the paycheck and a job that they hate, but they crave the security more and will put up with it for 40, 45 hours a week and just deal with it. But they're bringing that unhappiness and that anger home to their partner. So it's ruining relationships or to the kids. So this plays out in a lot of different ways.
Once again, listen to I'm Refocus Radio. We are talking to Riana Milne. You go to her website, rianamilne.com. And you mentioned about brain development. And I thought that was interesting because it makes me want to ask the question, are there hurdles or preventions or just obstacles, I'm trying to find the right word, that hinders an individual to progress throughout their years in their childhood whenever they are experiencing those types of trauma?
Yes. I mean, it starts with, let's say we had a pregnant mom with an abusive boyfriend. Okay, that scenario can cause the child to be born with different gene expression, or even those, they said the descendants from those of the Holocaust. There was so much anxiety and depression in those folks that their children and their children, like 3 generations deep, are proven to have different gene expression than others. There's less efficient processing. They say sometimes smaller brain size and very exaggerated stress response. So some people say, why is my baby cranky and yours is so quiet and calm? Well, how was the mother during pregnancy? So it's really important. Like I said, all adults know this. The good thing is the brain is malleable. It changes over time, and you can change the brain, which we do in trauma healing. Trauma stays stored in the brain and the body cells, right? It's expressed as high stress. And we can calm down the reactions in the brain processing. And that's what I do with my people. They go from fear-based, negative, unconscious thinking to positive, full conscious awareness. So they think before they speak, do, act. And basically one of the questions they ask, is this good for me and the other? Which is, there's a spirituality component to this as well. You're not only just thinking of yourself and your own survival, and that again becomes a pattern, but that could come off as selfish or narcissistic. And instead it's like, is this good for me and the other that I love, or my kids, for example? So the conscious awareness makes you make better, more empowered choices that you feel good about.
And you mentioned spiritual. Can faith have any positive effect as far as a person who has dealt with this, or has not dealt with their trauma? Could faith help contribute to the healing process?
Faith is absolutely essential. And that's why I call it spirituality, because I work with clients around the world. I've had people who are, follow the Buddhism faith, Muslim faith, Jewish, Christian. It doesn't matter that faith. Spirituality is a way that you are as a person 24/7, being a spiritual person. So all the books have higher messages, that those messages are the one that they internalize. Part of it is like live in integrity, do the right things when nobody's looking. These higher messages. In the Bible, they call it the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But so each book tends to have their own wording about the higher messages, but they're all about the same. But faith is essential for healing, because you have to have the faith to try other things, to go out of that comfort zone of what you knew as a kid that worked as survival, but don't serve you as an adult. So if you were a people pleaser to make sure nobody would yell at you and everything was peaceful, but you sacrificed your own self-esteem and you don't feel good about who you are, you have to have the faith to try the new tools to start speaking up for yourself, right? So, that it's a big transformational program in life, love, and business. To again stop self-sabotaging and take positive risk to grow and change in a multitude of ways.
And once an individual recognizes that there is an issue that has not been addressed, that deals with childhood trauma, when they make that first initial step, okay, I recognize there is a problem, check. Mm-hmm. Okay, now I get with someone like you, Riana, who helps coach me and helps me get back on the healthy track of life so I can do better in my personal and professional world. Now they are on that journey and they have that opportunity to take those tools and put in their toolbox. How do they maintain that balance of being consistent now that they have this new way of looking from a different perspective?
Well, it's really fascinating. I mean, everything I learned in my trauma training says ideally you have 6 months with your clients. Well, some clients couldn't afford to be with me 6 months, so I have a 4-month program, and it's more intensive. But the 6-month program, I can involve kids in there, partners, help them with a new career idea so we have more time. But basically, I describe it as going over a rainbow. You're starting at the place of, I don't know what I don't know, and I don't know how to change this. And I totally get that because I was there. I wanted the knowledge so bad to change why I was attracting toxic partners into my life. I just didn't get it. So when I got the tools and the empowerment, it's like you're going up the rainbow, you're learning the skills, you're practicing them, but you're going to slip. And then you keep going and then you'll slip. When people there, well, why do I have to slip? Because the unconscious is so strong. It's so strong. It keeps the brain in what we call homeostasis. It likes what it knows, even though what it knows is toxic and dysfunctional and not good for you. So we are fighting that and we keep going. We keep practicing and then you learn more skills and you're putting them all one on top of the other. And about the halfway mark, it starts getting much easier. And then you're practicing their skills and then, wow, this works. Or I'm proud of myself. I spoke up to my mom when she got rude, and you're finding that it works, right? As you're practicing these skills. And then at the end of the program, by the end of the program, you've got it. This is where we say it's the pot of gold. And then we look back in their module 2 of what we call the life wheel. There's 15 different areas they define and what they want to change in their life and where's their satisfaction at this stage from 0 to 100. And most people are 0 to about 30%. And they look back and they're like, oh my God, I'm at 85 to 95% in everything. And what they didn't quite finish, then we set up goals for the next 6 months that they will do once they've graduated so they know what to work on. But they look back and they're like, I am so different than what I was when I started with you. And they can feel it. They can see it, as they're going through. And then as they get more confident, I'm like, well, how would you handle it? Where do you think this trauma is coming from? Or the fact that you were emotionally triggered. Why were you triggered this time? And they'll know the answer. So again, knowledge is power. You have to know what you have because until you understand it, you just can't change it. And that's my quote. You can't change what you don't know or understand. Once we know and understand it, then we start the tools to change it. And they feel so great. They would never go backwards. And I see my clients years later. I'm 22 years in business doing this, and they're still happily married. And I'm also an officiant. Some I married in 2006, 2008, and they're still married because they have all the tools to negotiate through an issue and still stay loving and calm with their partner, or they're excelling in business. I have one girl from India, so shy. She never dated. She was 32 when she came to me. Horrible relationship with a very domineering, demanding, traditional father. And she couldn't say 2 words to him. And she had no confidence to date. And today she's a woman's empowerment coach. It's like, yay, go, and a best-selling author. So they take these skills and they really start to excel. And that's why I said I'm very honored to do what I do and see my clients growing and changing over time. It's phenomenal.
Once again, you're listening to I Am Refocused Radio, talking to our special guest for today, and that is Riana Milne. You go to her website, rianamilne.com. Again, that's rianamilne.com. In today's topic, we've been exploring the top 10 unconscious childhood traumas that impact adults in life and business. And throughout the whole conversation, I'm a very visual person. I'm on the creative side of the world too. So I couldn't help but visualize a metaphor. Like, imagine driving a car, but you have everything you need, the wheels, everything to shift gears, whatever, but your steering wheel is a problem. And I feel if you don't have the right tools in your toolbox, coaches like yourself, to help people learn how to steer better, then it's chaotic. Because now, if you don't know how to steer better, you're just all over the road in life. So I want to say, before we let you go, I'll let you have the last words for our audience. Number one, how can people stay in contact with you? And number two, if someone listening to this right now and they're inspired to recognize that they might have some undealt situations that they need to deal with in their life, what's the recommended step that you want them to take when they go to your website and do research?
Okay, so the first thing is we want them to know what the 10 childhood traumas are. So I'm going to send them to rianamilne.com, rianamilne.com. And on the homepage is a free ebook, How to Have the Love You Deserve. In there is the childhood trauma checklist. There's also 4 love tests that are free. Take those, because one is the childhood trauma checklist as well. But there's also red flags that you can identify in your relationship, the ACOA test, and are you really ready to date? Because most people date very wrong. They fall in love by chemistry, and it's one of the worst ways to pick a partner, according to all the science and the research. So there's much to learn there. My podcast, Lessons in Life and Love with Coach Riana Milne, is on every podcast platform. I have about 110 shows out there. And my number one best-selling book on my website under books, you can get the first 60 pages of Love Beyond Your Dreams, Break Free of Toxic Relationships to Have the Love You Deserve. And the sister book is Live Beyond Your Dreams, From Fear and Doubt to Personal Power, Purpose, and Success. And that's all about the mindset for success and going despite any fears or doubts, and how to get your mind strong enough to excel and achieve and be successful in all life areas.
Well, once again, I want to say true honor talking to you. I feel I have a life coaching session in this interview. So
thank you.
I want to say thank you for taking time to talk to I Am Refocused Radio. And once again, y'all go to rianamilne.com. That's rianamilne.com. I just want to say, once again, appreciate you taking time in your super, super tight, busy schedule to talk to us today.
Of course, I'm honored. Thank you so much for having me.
I Am Refocused Radio is brought to you by Foo 4 Star and Holy Crab. Foo 4 Star is a family-owned Asian restaurant in San Antonio, Texas. We have been a local favorite for Asian cuisine for over 10 years. With nothing but full smiles and fast service, you'll be leaving satisfied. Come on in for some authentic Vietnamese food. Holy Crab is one-of-a-kind Cajun Creole-style seafood restaurant located in Universal City, Texas. We offer traditional seafood items as well as chicken and steak. We also offer seafood boils. Come give us a try. You won't be disappointed. You can find these 2 eateries in Universal City, Texas at 2921 Pat Booker Road.